In 1965, the most powerful military force on Earth arrived in Southeast Asia. Over 500,000 American soldiers equipped with the latest technology, vast air superiority, and unlimited resources. They were here to win. But what they didn't know was that victory had already been buried, literally beneath their feet. Deep underground, in the jungles of Vietnam, a different kind of army was preparing. They had no air force, no tanks, no advanced weaponry. What they had was ingenuity, desperation, and a network of tunnels so vast, so intricate, that it would become one of history's greatest military secrets. The Viet Cong didn't fight like conventional soldiers. They fought like ghosts. They appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished into a labyrinth that made pursuit impossible. American generals called it impossible to defeat. Military strategists said it couldn't be done, yet it was happening. Beneath the dense jungle canopy, an empire was taking shape. Not an empire of cities or monuments, but of darkness, of tunnels, of passages so narrow that a full-grown man could barely squeeze through. This wasn't just a network, it was a weapon. The tunnel system stretched over 4,000 miles. That's longer than the entire continental United States, carved through unforgiving earth, by hand, with primitive tools, under constant threat of discovery. Some called it the eighth wonder of warfare. But tunnels alone don't win wars. What made the Viet Cong truly lethal was what they created inside them and what they planted around them. Weapons that defied conventional warfare, traps that turned the jungle itself into an enemy. The bamboo spike trap was simple in design but devastating in execution. Sharpened bamboo sticks, often coated with poison or feces to ensure infection, were hidden in camouflaged pits. A single misstep meant crippling pain, infection, and often death. American soldiers began calling them punji sticks. The name came from the Vietnamese word, but what soldiers actually experienced was something far more sinister. Whole units were crippled not by bullets, but by hidden spikes waiting beneath leaves and vines. These weren't sophisticated weapons. They were elegant in their simplicity. A soldier couldn't shoot back at a bamboo stick. He couldn't call in air support. He could only suffer, scream, and watch as his unit's mobility became compromised. But the Viet Cong weren't done. While American commanders were studying maps in air-conditioned tents, Vietnamese engineers were experimenting with something else: improvised explosives, homemade mines, booby traps triggered by tripwires, pressure plates, or even the simple act of opening a door. These mines were crafted from whatever materials could be scavenged or stolen: artillery shells, captured ammunition, explosives made from fertilizer and chemicals. Each one was a potential life-taker, and the Viet Cong planted thousands of them. The psychology of these weapons was as important as their lethality. American soldiers began to move with paralyzing caution. Every step could be their last. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every path through the jungle became a gauntlet of invisible death. This wasn't winning through superior firepower. It was winning through superior fear. The Viet Cong understood something that military academies rarely teach. An enemy that is terrified is an enemy that is ineffective. In the tunnels themselves, the advantage became even more pronounced. Imagine being an American soldier, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds of equipment and body armor, trying to navigate a tunnel system designed by people who were, on average, 5'3". The tunnels were deliberately cramped, deliberately claustrophobic. Rooms were hidden within rooms. Passages led to dead ends. or worse, to booby traps. Ventilation shafts concealed spikes. Hidden chambers held supplies, weapons, and fighters waiting in absolute darkness. The Viet Cong had turned the earth itself into a fortress, and the scale was incomprehensible. In Cu Chi alone, just one region, over 250 kilometers of tunnels connected villages, hospitals, weapon factories, and command centers. An entire underground city thriving beneath the surface while bombs fell above. American military response was brutal. Extensive bombing campaigns, chemical defoliants designed to strip the jungle bare, and even experimental flooding attempts to drown the tunnels. Yet the Viet Cong adapted, rebuilt, and expanded. What made this truly remarkable was the innovation happening in those dark passages. The Viet Cong weren't just fighters, they were engineers, inventors, and problem solvers. They designed sophisticated alarm systems using bells made from spent ammunition. They created bamboo weapons, launchers, crossbows, and spears that required no ammunition and made no noise. They developed booby traps that used physics and gravity instead of explosives. Every innovation was born from necessity and desperation. The most insidious traps were often the simplest. Tripwires connected to grenades, pressure-activated mines concealed beneath perfectly normal-looking jungle floor, sharpened sticks angled to pierce upward through foxhole floors. Low-tech, but devastatingly effective. American soldiers developed a grim nickname for the process of clearing tunnels: rat runs. It meant crawling into absolute darkness, armed with only a pistol, knowing that an enemy fighter might be inches away, waiting. The psychological toll was immense. Some soldiers were lowered into tunnels on ropes, dropping into unknown darkness below. Others used hand grenades to flush out fighters. The casualty rates among tunnel specialists were staggering, and many soldiers refused the assignment. It was considered a suicide mission. Yet the Viet Cong continued to expand and develop their underground network throughout the war. Despite 20 million tons of bombs dropped on North and South Vietnam, despite chemical weapons, and despite 58,000 American deaths, the tunnels remained. By 1968, the tunnel systems had become so effective that American military planners were forced to acknowledge a fundamental truth. They could not win this war through conventional means. An enemy living underground, armed with improvised weapons and willing to fight indefinitely, could not be defeated by technology alone. The turning point came during the Tet Offensive of 1968. Viet Cong fighters emerged from the tunnels across the entire country simultaneously, launching coordinated attacks on cities, military bases, and government centers. It was strategically brilliant and psychologically devastating. American public opinion began to shift. Despite military victories, the war seemed unwinnable. The enemy was everywhere and nowhere. He lived beneath the earth. He emerged from the darkness, and no amount of firepower seemed to stop him. The lesson of the Viet Cong was clear. Technology and resources are not guarantees of victory. Will, innovation, and understanding of your terrain can overcome superior weaponry. A determined enemy fighting on his own terms, in his own country, is exponentially more dangerous than any military calculation suggests. In 1973, American forces withdrew from Vietnam. The tunnels had not been defeated. The improvised weapons had not been rendered obsolete. The guerrilla fighters had not been conquered. Instead, they had proven that a different kind of warfare, unconventional, adaptive, and rooted in the land itself, could prevail. Today, the Cu Chi tunnels remain, preserved as a museum. They stand as a testament to human ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. Visitors crawl through passages rebuilt to historical specifications, experiencing a fraction of what soldiers once endured. The Viet Cong's methods, their tunnels, their traps, their improvised weapons changed modern warfare forever. They proved that you don't need an air force to rule the skies of your own country. You don't need tanks to control the earth beneath your feet. Sometimes, all you need is vision, determination, and the willingness to fight on your own terms. That is how homemade weapons beat military might in the jungle.